Good afternoon and welcome to our Prague YouTube channel. If you haven't done so already, please subscribe to this channel by clicking on the button. Now the question that intrigues me today is, where does the coronavirus come from? Whereas currently they are referring to it as the COVID-19 virus, in the scientific community, they use another term. They call it the SARS-CoV-2 virus because of its similarity to the original SARS virus, SARS, or so-called bird flu that broke out in the early 2000s. They've kept on using this term SARS-CoV-2 for coronavirus, this type of coronavirus. Now, two issues. One, there's a myth. The myth is that the novel coronavirus, SARS-CoV-2, the current virus, is a Chinese virus, as Trump called it, that comes from bats. It infected people because Chinese people eat bats. Now that's utter hogwash. Sorry, Mr. Trump. It might be a Chinese virus, but it doesn't come from bats. Or that hasn't been proven. In fact, people eat bats in other countries too. So the fact is, at the moment, the source of the virus is actually not known. Patient 0, the very first patient, the person who first carried the virus, has not been found. The so-called Wuhan wet market, where exotic animals are sold, was not the source of the outbreak. In fact, there's been a paper published in Nature, which I'll refer to in a moment, and there was another paper written by a large group of Chinese researchers from several institutions, which offers details about the first 41 hospitalized patients who had confirmed infections with what has been dubbed the 2019 novel coronavirus, 2019 nCoV. In the earliest case, the patient became ill on 1 December 2019 and had no reported link to the seafood market, the authors report. Quote, no epidemiological link was found between the first patient and later cases, they state. Their data also show that in total 13 of the 41 cases had no link to the marketplace. Quote unquote, that's a big number, 13 with no link, says Daniel Lucy, an infectious disease specialist at Georgetown University in Washington, USA. So while the new coronavirus might be one that was originally carried by bats, it is unlikely to have jumped from a bat to a human. The older SARS virus, which is somewhat similar to the novel coronavirus, originated from bats, but first spread to other animals before mutating from there into a form that infects humans. The only place where bats are regularly used as food is the Pacific island Palau, which is more or less a US colony. So then the Chinese might be right that it's an American virus, because that's where the people are eating bats mostly, and the videos showing Chinese citizens eating fruit bat soup were actually filmed on that island. There's also been a theory that the virus originates from a military weapons research laboratory, but we've only got circumstantial evidence for that. But currently, the French health minister Agnès Buzyn is being charged with negligence by a group calling themselves C19. A couple of days ago, in fact, she made a statement to the Le Monde newspaper, which is one of the two major dailies published in France, in Paris. And she said, quote unquote, I'll first give you the quote in French, Je savais que la vague du tsunami était devant nous. Le 30 janvier, j'ai averti le Premier ministre Édouard Philippe que les élections ne pourraient sans doute pas se tenir. On aurait dû tout arrêter. C'était une mascarade. Freely translated, she said, I knew on the 30th of January that the tsunami was going to hit us. On 30 January, I tried to warn the Prime Minister of France, Édouard Philippe, that the municipal elections would without doubt not be held in France. They've just had municipal elections in France, which were badly attended. We had to stop everything. It was a masquerade. So on the basis of this statement by her has now led to a controversy in France, and she is being sued for culpable negligence for having known about the imminence of the outbreak of the virus and therefore not doing enough to actually take the necessary steps to stop the virus. In fact, she resigned late last year from her position of as Minister of Health in France in order to become a municipal candidate in Paris, standing against the socialist candidate, another woman called Anne Hidalgo. Now, this collective that's suing her, this organization that's suing her called C19, they mentioned in a press conference held on the 18th of March, they said they called on individuals who had masks to give them to health professionals, which constitutes for caregivers an admission of helplessness that relate to the revelations of Agnès Buzyn, according to which the government was informed since January of the tsunami which is going to fall on France. Therefore, continues their text, it is clear that it is by culpable negligence that the Prime Minister, but also the former Minister of Health, did not anticipate a crisis of which they manifestly knew the gravity, and that in any event they could not ignore it, unquote. Now, why is France important in this picture? If one, apart from the fact that France has now also become one of the epicenters of the disease, not as bad as Italy, but it's certainly picking up speed there. The French were also intimately involved in the research around coronaviruses, and in fact they built the laboratory in Wuhan, a level 4 laboratory for the Chinese, which specialized in research on coronaviruses. Now, one of the theories, or you could call it conspiracy theory, is that the virus did not evolve in bats or animals such as the pangolin. That's another theory, that it was transferred, or the pangolin ate a bat, and then the pangolin, then a Chinese person ate the pangolin in his soup or something, and then we all got the virus. But as we know, it's not enough to just ingest the virus. You've actually got to get it into your bloodstream. But as the case may be, the French built this laboratory in Wuhan in the early 2000s for the Chinese. And in fact, it took a long time to build it. They started in 2002, and it was only finished in 2017, when the French Prime Minister at the time, Bernard Cazeneuve, opened it. He went there and they had an official opening, and in fact there's a copy of his speech on the internet in French if you'd care to read it. But present in the audience, some of the honorary guests at the occasion were this former Minister of Health, Agnès Buzyn, and her husband, someone called Yves Lévy, who himself had a whole project going on in researching coronaviruses. So it could have happened that the virus escaped from that particular laboratory. And if you are interested, well, you can actually look up on these types of laboratories on Wikipedia. In fact, in the comment section of this video, I'll give you some of the links to what I'm referring to here, and you can go and read it for yourself. But on Wikipedia, they define a level 4 laboratory. They call it a P4, or a biosafety level 4, as the following. Biosafety level 4, BSL4, is the highest level of biosafety precautions and is appropriate for work with agents that could easily be aerosol transmitted within the laboratory and cause severe to fatal disease in humans for which there are no available vaccines or treatments. BSL-4 laboratories are generally set up to be either cabinet laboratories or protective suit laboratories. Okay, and then they go on to explain how they work. But if you look at pictures of the Wuhan laboratory, the people wear these kind of white blown up suits. There is air inside the suit, and they get it from pipes in the ceiling. And there's another laboratory like that in France, in the city of Lyon, which was built along the same principles. And in fact, if you go, you can go and have a look at the list of these level 4 laboratories. Then I didn't count them, but there must be about 30 or 40 of them worldwide. So this virus, including here in Johannesburg, in South Africa, we've got the only one in Africa. It's not too far from where I'm recording this video, maybe about 10 to 15 kilometers. And there they treat, well, they handle these extremely dangerous viruses for which no known cure exists. So it tells us just how delicate these laboratories are. And in fact, in this article in Nature, in the scientific journal Nature, which has just been published on the 17th of March this year, where they're asking exactly the same question I'm asking on this video. Where did the virus come from? Although they don't put it as a question, they simply, the title is The Proximal Origin of SARS-CoV-2. And ultimately, in this article, in which they go into all the genetic detail around this virus, they come to exactly the same conclusion, that at the moment we cannot say that it comes from nature, that it had evolved in bats or other animals, and that it was zoonotically transferred to humans, or whether it was just human error, that a virus was manipulated in a laboratory and then escaped from the laboratory. And in fact, in the same article, in a footnote, they reference previous incidents where viruses had escaped from these level 4 laboratories. So at the moment, we just don't know. But there's far more to this virus than what we are being told, because it has to, it cannot just spread from the bat to the human without mutating. It has to bind with receptors in the human cells. If you look at all the pictures that you can see in the media and on the internet and everywhere of this virus, it's got spikes. And now those spikes are made up of proteins or amino acids, and in their natural state, the viruses found in animals and particularly in bats, cannot bind with a human cell. They've got to mutate from that to a form where they can actually bind. And this can either then take place by accident in nature, and this is the theory that people are putting forward now, that it was by accident that the virus evolved in the bat, or in the pangolin or wherever, and then it jumped onto the first human, and we haven't found that first human yet. But the other possibility is also there, that it was manipulated, genetically engineered in a laboratory, and then also escaped by accident from the laboratory, infected an individual, and from there it spread all over the world. And yes, I mean, it just is such a coincidence that the virus, that the outbreak should have started in Wuhan, where specifically this laboratory specialized in coronaviruses is located, built by the French. And now we have this statement by the French former Minister of Health, who's now a municipal candidate in Paris, Mrs. Agnès Buzyn, and she's saying that she's feeling guilty because she warned the government that there was a tsunami going. So she understood exactly what was going on, because her husband is himself the head of research. He still is the head of the INSERM, the National Medical Research Institute of France, and they actually patented a form of this SARS-CoV-2 virus in 2002. In fact, I also put this in the comment section. You can go and have a look at that. There's a video doing the rounds in France at the moment, where people are, it's another theory, or call it a conspiracy theory around this virus, where people are claiming that the French actually bioengineered this virus in order to sell a vaccine afterwards. But that sounds a bit far-fetched. And perhaps the SARS-CoV-2 virus they're talking about in the patent from Agnès Buzyn's husband, Mr. or Dr. or Professor Yves Lévy, that virus from 2002, which was also called a novel SARS virus, just like this one, that virus was perhaps not exactly the same as this virus, but there are certain similarities between the two. So yes, this whole story about the virus is going to continue. It's going to affect everybody on the planet, the virus is, and we'll also have to think a lot more about where it came from and whose fault it is, if somebody is at fault for the fact that this virus escaped either from an animal and it was then transferred via a market, which is the current theory, which sounds a bit random to me, or perhaps that it actually escaped by accident from one of these rather sinister level 4 laboratories. Thanks for watching until now, and if you haven't done so yet, the Prague logo is going to appear on the right of the screen. Please click on it and subscribe to this channel. And until next time, I bid you goodbye.